Welcome to Elevating Job Quality, a podcast from the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program. Today, we're taking you inside a dialogue from the Shared Success Project, exploring how CDFIs, or Community Development Financial Institutions, can help their small business clients create good jobs so that workers, business owners, and local economies all thrive. Coming up, a conversation about job quality as a part of CDFI's mission. Maureen Conway, Executive Director of the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program, speaks with Amanda Blondeau, Chief Strategy Officer at Northern Initiatives, and Robert Boyle, Founder and CEO of Justine PETERSEN.
Well, welcome, Amanda and Robert. I'm really thrilled that you're here to join me for our series on job quality in small businesses, and in particular to talk about how the issue of job quality relates to the mission of CDFIs, Community Development Finance Institutions. So Amanda, let me just start with you. So historically, CDFIs have focused on job creation, job retention, really thinking about that as sort of drivers of economic development in their communities. But what kind of inspired a shift to include job quality as part of the mission work of a CDFI?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me here, Maureen. It's good to be here. So at Northern Initiatives, we're actually celebrating our 30th anniversary. We're based in Michigan. We're a CDFI that focuses on helping businesses to start and grow. And the big focus and why we got started was we were seeing a lot of jobs leaving our area due to, we really had like a mining community, resource extraction, and wanted to allow people to create the opportunities for themselves. So jobs is, one of those areas so that we can also have, support our communities to thrive, allow them to thrive. But job quality, it's not just about having the job. It's actually being able to contribute to the community, to be able to build wealth. And a big shift, it's something we've thought about and have been thinking about for a long time, but really with COVID and the changes we saw in our economies, attracting and retaining employees is one of the biggest challenges we hear from small business owners. And I think a lot of that comes down to, well, what is the quality of your job? So that's why we really started to focus in even more on this work.
Great. Thank you so much. And Rob, let me just come to you with basically the same question. For Justine PETERSEN, what kind of, how do you think about this connection between job quality and the mission of a CDFI?
Yeah, similarly to what Amanda was saying, at Justine PETERSEN, we focus on asset building, individual asset building. And at the core of that, Maureen, is a very basic credit building model. And as we think about job quality, and to Amanda's point again about retaining jobs, it's bringing the asset building model that we have been using for our business owners deeper into the organization, so that the business owner might be able to pass along what the business owner has learned for themselves and bring it into the business. In terms of retaining quality jobs, it's really interesting because we've noticed in a number of cases where we've brought in, for example, credit building activities where it really is an added value to the employee, to the worker. We find that as that worker has left, this has happened a couple of times. It's really interesting that employee has talked about how invigorating. That's maybe an overstatement, but maybe not. The employer has offered the particular employee. We've seen this a couple of times in the daycare operations. So that's what we do.
Yeah, great. So I think that's really great. Let's dig, how you're sort of connecting it to your communities, and let's dig in a little bit more in terms of this term job quality that we're talking about, and sort of when you think about job quality and you think about the small businesses you're working with, how do you define it, and how do you and also how do you work with your team to kind of integrate that focus into their work?
We're beginning to bring into all of the work that we do, not just the lending work, Justine PETERSEN does a lot of small business loans, consumer loans also, but for the small business owner, we're understanding that with the retaining employees especially, and understanding that it's not job quality is not simply about money. It's more about holistic opportunities for the employees and their families. It's really interesting because as we attempt to bring in, for example, specific medical plans, those are often unaffordable. However, employee recognition is a big part of the work that we're beginning to do. So when we bring in a potential borrower comes to us for some capital, we're beginning to talk more about, are you thinking about what your employees are feeling and understanding?
Yeah. I just want to push you on that one a little bit, just because I think it's interesting how you've thought about job quality in this broader way. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if you want to say a little bit more about that and the work you've been doing on employee recognition, because it's not only the jobs out there, right? It's like how we think about our own organizations as well. So I was wondering if you just wanted to say a word about that.
Yeah, I can a little bit more. Again, bringing in to the employee what we've been doing with our business owner. Mm-hmm. We're thinking more about how to more holistically, to use that word again, talk about the family and what is happening with with the potential for home ownership, for example, and bringing in more to the employee what we've been offering for our business owner.
Mm-hmm. And for the employees at Justine PETERSEN as well.
Oh, yeah. We've begun to have the employee recognition. It's really interesting because we're learning so much about how to bring into the community the job quality notion through the work that we're doing at JP. Yeah. It's really interesting because it seems like such a small thing, employee recognition, but it really energizes the group. The way we're doing this right now at Justine PETERSEN is through a vote. There's certain criteria that we have, and it's been just really, really energizing.
Yeah, great. I love that. Amanda, let's hear how you think about what job quality is and how that shapes your work.
Yeah, I've been at Northern Initiatives for over 21 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think a big part of it starts with the environment that we're in and how we've had the ability I've been able to move up. I've been able to have a voice in what we're doing, and I feel very supported. And I actually was a job quality fellow with Aspen and Maureen before. And that was something where when I applied for that, I was thinking about job quality. Actually, we are doing some of these things, but we're not naming it. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to be even more intentional about it. So that kind of started our journey where a lot of what my work has been at Northern Initiatives is focusing on the know-how. So we provide money and know-how to small businesses that look to start and grow, but it's supporting them through, what would it take to pay your employees a living wage? What about, what do you want to make out of this? How do you create wealth and be able to have economic mobility? And so when at Northern Initiatives, we focus, providing the loans, but also it's that support so that they're creating a quality job for themselves, which are things such as, a wage, actually. How many businesses start with not paying themselves? And I understand there's that, but in the end, really want this to be a good job for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then, then the employees and make that impact. And so those are things such as, flexible scheduling, being able to have opportunities to improve, but it does come down to the individual organizations. I like what Robert said too about that voting part. Mm-hmm. Too. Mm-hmm. There are some basics that people need. They need to be able to make a living wage, but there's other things that drive us. Mm-hmm. And there are small things we can do, so there is this continuum too. So that's how we look at it, and we try to meet where is that entrepreneur at? Where do they want to go, while we're educating along the way and showing that this is a continuum.
Yeah, if I may, I have to.
I actually wanted
please,
to switch gears a little bit, and you'll probably be able to come back to what you're going to say. But because I know for both of you, we're talking about how job quality connects to mission, and I know for both of you also, you're concerned about racial disparities in your communities and how to sort of build, a more inclusive approach to economic development within the places where you operate. And so I'm wondering if you could just also talk about how job quality connects to that part of your mission and how it addresses these issues of racial disparities.
Yeah. Well, with CDFI's mission, our focus is to work on underserved, underinvested communities. And a big area of that is those people of color. And so one of our big focuses is providing loans so that they can create that job, they can grow that business. And that we feel like is that path to wealth. And as you mentioned, like you really focus on asset building. That's something we really think about too. CDFIs come in and they support where others cannot and are just not set up to. And so that's why, we have created intentionality to be able to focus on those areas, because we do see that there's a lot of opportunities so that we can create this economic stability and mobility in those communities.
Yeah, thank you for that. In some ways, it's a natural for JP because of our demographic activity. 90% of the loans that we make are either to persons of color and or low-income families. So it's somewhat natural. However, it's really interesting that, getting back to what Amanda said earlier, we really have to talk about intentionality, being intentional. What's among the biggest challenges, or the bigger challenges, is creating an understanding that the job quality activity is an investment into the business, just as capital is an investment, or a building improvement is an investment, and getting that into the regimen of the business is a really difficult challenge.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about that, because, so often we get this sort of trade-off kind of thing. Like if you invest in workers, that's bad for the business bottom line. Yeah. So how do you address that?
Well, first of all, it's difficult to measure.
Yeah.
It really is. It's almost, and we're just beginning to think about how to confirm for our business owner with data that this is really going to pay off, that this is putting quality into quality jobs, intentionality. So I can't be definitive at this point about whether or not we're getting through to our business owner. It's similar in some ways. It's really interesting. It's similar in some ways to the small business owner who's been maybe successful, but may not have an accountant, for example.
Yeah,
we've seen it before. It's like, wait a minute. You think that this is an expense? Well, wait, this is an investment, and that's sort of where we're going with the job quality aspect. Is, look, the reason that it's an investment is because, and then we have those conversations.
Yeah.
But people don't think about it that way. In fact, in some ways, I hadn't thought about it that way, as an investment into our employees, into our business. So I've just learned that recently.
Too often it's
we all learn.
No.
Well, too often it's just labor is characterized as an expense,
That's
not an investment.
That's right.
So
it's an asset. Yes,
it is.
So how do you deal with this issue in the work that you do at Northern Initiatives?
So I was a coach for some time, and one of the things that would really relate to some small businesses too is you look at, I'm traveling and I'm looking at reviews. And you're seeing reviews of the staff were nice, or maybe the staff were cranky, and that's not usually on the person. And it can be, but it's usually based on that job. And so when you think about that, employees really are our most precious asset. It allows us to be able to step back. An owner can step back and think about, how do I grow this business? They're able to maybe take a vacation at some point. They're being able to provide good service, because if you don't, how many times have you been to a restaurant and maybe, you could tell that people just weren't happy.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to go back. It doesn't matter if you have the best food around.
Yeah.
And so it's not only about sticking on this restaurant example. It's not just about the quality of food. It's the quality of the experience. And that really comes down to how people are treated, and how good of a job this is, and meets their needs.
Yeah, great, terrific. So as you think about, sort of the CDFI field and how job quality connects to the work of CDFIs in terms of how they're trying to do economic development in their communities, I'm also wondering if there's any advice you have to sort of like your fellow CDFIs about, things that they might want to think about, or how they might want to approach kind of building a job quality lens into the work that they do. Rob, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. We view this activity with Aspen, the job quality activity, as a way to assist other CDFIs. I mean, the way that we've been able to think about job quality through the work that we're doing with Aspen offers opportunity for other CDFIs. And especially, as I said earlier, bringing into, you mentioned, Amanda, you did some technical assistance, some coaching early on.
Yeah.
I don't think we think about coaching and technical assistance. We haven't really brought in until recently the notion of an investment into the job quality idea. So as we learn more, we can hopefully bring into the CDFI field what we've learned. So that's what I would say about that.
I think it's almost like what I mentioned for a small business, there's a continuum, and you don't need to understand it all, but we need to start having the conversations. That's what's crucial. And there is a lot of resources out there, which is great, and also at the same time can be overwhelming. But if we can just start to talk, I know attracting and retaining employees is a common challenge for businesses everywhere. So that is crucial for CDFIs to be focusing on that, because for our small businesses to succeed, they need to be able to keep good employees and be able to continue this business.
Yeah.
I'd like to say something about that further. If realizing that, and even through our own work at Justine PETERSEN, and you said it earlier, Amanda, employees having a voice. And as we're beginning to have conversations related to job quality with those individuals who are just coming into our organization, maybe having their first loan with us, the idea of giving a voice to your employees, it's a really new notion to those business owners, because small business owners tend to take on everything themselves and don't really think about, hey, maybe I can get some really good advice, counsel by asking my employees, hey, what are you thinking? It's just a really new notion with most of our business owners. Oh no, wait, this is my business.
Yeah.
I should have all the answers. So it's an interesting concept.
And don't we all want to be able to provide our opinion too?
Of course we do. This is the point.
Yeah. So last question. I'm just curious if there's one example of a small business in your community that just kind of inspires you as you do this work. If there's one example that comes to mind.
I've got a couple.
Okay, you start.
That come to mind. So one is they're a jeweler. So they create their own jewelry. So you usually think about that as going to art shows, doing a lot of travel, just one person. But they had priced their product and marketed it in a way that they now are able to take vacation. They can offer benefits. They employ other artists and also train those artists so that some of them have just gone off and started their own business, which is also a success and has had this growth in the community of artisans. So that's one of them. There's many others too that I think about, but that's one
That's great.
I'll name Rochelle B. Rochelle is an extraordinary person. Rochelle first came to Justine PETERSEN in early 2000s as to purchase a home, and subsequently Rochelle began to build her child care center. and grew that from a very small operation to among the larger operations in the St. Louis region. And the neat thing about Rochelle is that she's brought into, to your point, Amanda, she's brought into the organization an opportunity for her staff not only to create a living wage through being really creative, not just with state money, but also with her going out into the world for grant funding. So she's been so entrepreneurial about this and understanding, even intuitively, I think Rochelle understands the notion of bringing quality to the team is really, to my earlier point, a huge investment. Yeah. So I would call her out on that.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for talking with me about the connection between job quality and the mission of CDFIs, and really grateful for the work that you both do in the communities you serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Thanks for the opportunity.
That was Amanda Blondeau, Chief Strategy Officer at Northern Initiatives, and Robert Boyle, founder and CEO of Justine PETERSEN, in conversation with Maureen Conway, Executive Director of the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program. If you enjoyed this episode of Elevating Job Quality, please subscribe or share this conversation with anyone you think would benefit from it. The Shared Success demonstration is managed by the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program and supported by a 4-year investment from the Gates Foundation. See as.pn/shared success to learn more. Views expressed here are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect positions or policies of the Foundation.